Hello and welcome to this week's conversation on Sincerely Speaking. I am Marcy Amaro. I am so excited to introduce you today to Rebecca Doring. We met through common friends and common connections. We travel in some of the same circles, and so we eventually connected with each other. She actually reached out to me, which I'm very grateful for. And I am so excited that we get to share in this conversation today. I know you're going to have a lot of notes to take, so grab something to write with and be ready because she is here to deliver the goods. Rebecca, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this.
Hi, welcome to Sincerely Speaking. I'm Marcy Amaro, your self leadership coach. Now, what that means is I'm here to help you rediscover your calling, tap into your greatest potential and strengths, and eliminate those things that keep getting in your way and in the way of your success. So, whatever success looks like to you, whether it is in your career, in your business, in your relationships, or in your life in general, I'm here to help you get out of your own way, remove the obstacles, and elevate all of your life to the next level. If you're ready to see everything that you're capable of and see what your life can look like, I invite you to head on over to marcyamara.com and set up a 30-minute clarity and confidence call where we will talk about your mission, your vision, your goals, the things that you're here on this planet to create, what might be getting in the way up until now, and some actionable, amazing ways to get out of your own way to eliminate all those obstacles and reach the level of success that you've been dreaming of. Are you ready? Are you ready for the next level? Then stick around to this conversation of Sincerely Speaking, and then head on over to marcyamaro.com and schedule your 30-minute call. Can't wait to meet you in person. Chat soon.
Awesome. So let's start, like I usually do, by sharing with me and the rest of the audience a little bit about your background, who you are, and what you do.
Sure. Yeah. So I am an an inner critic coach, a meditation teacher, and a yoga instructor. And I did not start out that way. I did not dream of becoming someone in the wellness industry. I actually dreamed of becoming a pastry chef, and I went on to fulfill that dream. And so it's the thing that led me to where I am now is a desire to heal myself, a
Mm.
desire to feel fulfilled, to feel joyful, to be able to enjoy the moment in life and not be so caught up in a ball of stress and worry and overwhelm like I so frequently experienced. So for me, getting to where I am now was very much a stepping stone journey, one experience to the next that led me to wanting to help solve a current struggle that was really causing a lot of angst. And whenever I would find that thing, it just kept leading me deeper and deeper into the wellness world until I wanted to launch my own online business when I was fully in the wellness world, meditation teacher, yoga teacher, coach, all the things, and had this dream of sharing my voice, of being able to express my perspective and help people in a really more long lasting way. But I kept getting stuck in my own way. This one pattern that had been with me throughout my entire life came very loud and obvious, which was my inner critic,
Mm.
this part of me that would beat myself up, be the hardest on myself, and get in my own way, even though I had all these other amazing practices like meditation and journaling and yoga. There was still this part of me that was so hard on myself. And I knew that I needed to learn how to navigate that in order to finally take action on my dream of building this online business and reaching more people. And then that led me to discover my purpose, which is actually helping others do the same. This is my absolute passion. I know I've finally found my calling, and I'm sure it'll continue to evolve as life does. But right now, I'm so, so grateful for where this has brought me.
Oh wow, there's so much to unpack here. Let's just take it one little bit at a time. So the
Right?
very the very first thing I want to go back to, and the very first thing that I think my audience will get, or the people listening will get the most out of, is I have so many people come to me because they feel like they need to be 100% clear about what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And I believe most of us get stuck at one point or another in this cycle of, I think it's this, but no, it might, right, of trying to be 100% clear before we take action. Now, I would love to hear your take on how do we navigate this notion that we need clarity in order to do things?
Oh my goodness, what an amazing question, and something that I truly thought. Being in eighth grade, I was very clear, 100%. I wanted to be an expert top pastry chef, and I knew that was my life. That was going to be the rest of my life. And then I very quickly, through a lot of experiences, realized that life doesn't have to be that way. And to me, to me, the richest life experience is not is letting things unfold and evolve, letting life experiences take us to the next thing. So to me, taking action brings clarity. It's absolutely terrifying to do it that way. We want to have it all figured out before we take action. We want to think and think and think and brainstorm and ask people for advice. But all that does is it often gets us more and more confused. So what I've found is that by taking action, it doesn't have to be the end all be all, because each experience you have will bring you gifts, will bring you life experience. I still have and use so much of the experiences that I had in pastry school. And if I could go back and do it all over again, I still would take the same exact path that I took to get here. So I hope that answered your question.
It actually did. And, it's really funny because in sixth grade, I decided that I was going to be a neurosurgeon.
Okay. So you resonate.
I resonate completely. And my college education started as a neurology major because I was going to be a neurosurgeon, until I volunteered at a hospital and realized, no, this is not the life I get to lead, right? And I ended up being a teacher, and there was a different path. But I agree with you. Until you take a step, you have no way of knowing. And it's so overwhelming, I think, when we put on ourselves this notion that we have to know, that we have to be clear. And I think that that's one of the disservices that our industries, both the wellness and the personal development industries, do to people, is throwing out this notion that, oh, no, you need 100% clarity. Why?
Right. Well, and even if we think about it, taking it a step further, we've been conditioned at a young age. We ask little kids, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" We're taught that we need to decide when you're in high school, in the U.S. at least, and when you're in high school, you're supposed to know where you want to go to college and what you're going to do with it. And the truth of the matter is that the thing that I really believe now is that there is no wrong path. As long as you're moving forward, the universe will guide you to where you're supposed to be. That each experience that you do take will give you knowledge, will help you discover a new part of yourself, will help you. Sometimes it just shows you contrast. It shows you exactly what you don't want, and you can rule that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything does tend to work together, right? And we put so much pressure on each decision that then we get paralyzed by all of it. But the other thing I noticed when you were introducing yourself is you mentioned noticing patterns. And that's one of the things that I invite people to do all the time, is to be a little bit more aware of the patterns in their lives. Can you tell us a little bit about what that process was like for you, the going through the awareness and identifying these patterns in your life?
So the biggest tool that I have and that I share is curiosity. Curiosity is so simple. It can seem like, oh, really? That's your biggest tool? But it is such a profound, tangible action step that can help us get out of the pattern of self-judgment and get into the pattern of awareness, which can lead to understanding and expansion and inspiration and creativity and all the things we're after. But getting curious. And I think for me, I was first introduced to meditation when I wasn't actually seeking it in the wellness industry. And that was my first entrance into awareness. That taught me how to get curious and observe myself, my patterns, what I was experiencing. And through the act of curiosity, that has led me to all other areas of my life. But curiosity and then questioning. I think so many of us tend to assume that we are the way we are, that our thoughts are what they are and we can't do anything about it. And they're truth. Everything we think is true. Everything we feel is true. And so getting curious and then questioning these things can help us understand ourselves more deeply, and also start to see that maybe these thought patterns, these emotions, these ways of being aren't really who we are. They're just experiences we're having,
Mhm.
maybe layers of stress that are layered on top of ourselves.
Yeah. And so much of what we believe is us or part of who we are doesn't even come from us. And we
Mm,
just accept it as truth. And when we stop and really think about it and, like you said, question it with curiosity, it's like, okay, where did that really come from? Let me get curious for a minute. When was the first time that I thought that this was true? And start
right.
looking at the source. It's so interesting, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's those two things alone. If you as the listener were to walk away from this episode with nothing else, curiosity and questioning, that can take you so far. They're constant practices within my personal work and what I share with my clients and my students.
That's awesome. Now let's talk a little bit more about that core concept of the inner critic,
Mm,
because there are some phrases that we hear thrown about all the time, and people use it in a bunch of different ways, not all of them necessarily um, matching, right, the most beneficial or the most empowering meaning of the word. So I would love for us to have a working definition of, when we're talking about inner critic, what is it that we're thinking about? What is it that we're looking at?
mm. Yeah, to me, this voice that I'm speaking to is the one that turns against ourselves.
Hmm.
It's the voice that does not have our own backs. It's the voice that will be more likely to judge, to beat ourselves up, to rehash everything, tell us that we should have done it differently, or we shouldn't want this, or we shouldn't feel this. It's that critical voice that is like against. And when we have that voice and we blindly believe it, then we come to feel that that voice is speaking truth and that these words are true, that, oh, we really shouldn't speak up. Oh, we really shouldn't put ourselves out there. Oh, we really do mess up every time we do actually speak up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool. Now, when we are thinking about the inner critic and all these inner voices, we tend to think that if we had it, if it was an issue for us, we would know it. Is that the case?
I don't think so because looking back for me, I can now see that it was always there. It was always there since childhood for sure. And it was a pattern that escalated throughout the years, especially as I had bigger goals for myself and wanted to put myself out there more and wanted to speak up. And then as soon as I started getting this working definition and understanding how it presented, which for me and for a lot of my clients are feeling self-doubt, thinking those thoughts like, who am I to do this?
Mm-hmm.
That, oh, I would love to do that, but I don't know if what I have is valuable enough to offer. I don't know if I could do it like that. Comparing ourselves to others, if we're stuck in that pattern of seeing people on social media and seeing, oh, they've got it all figured out, I don't. That's a sign of an inner critic. Rehashing things, going back and going over all of the mistakes. For me in pastry school, I saw only my flaws. I was very much a perfectionist, which I also see perfectionism and the inner critic go hand in hand together.
Mm-hmm.
And so I very much embraced and owned my title of a perfectionist, because it was like a title to own. It was a title to embrace as in the pastry world. So I went on to be as perfect as I could. But whenever I would complete a pastry, I would have my chefs tell me that it was great. I had classmates tell me that it was great. There was one day I still remember I had made fruit tarts,
Mm-hmm.
and people were coming up giving me compliments. And the whole time I was thinking, oh, they're just being nice, because all I saw were the flaws. So, to answer your question, there's a lot of different ways that we can experience the inner critic that creates that disconnect from ourselves. And helping identify what that is, to me, enables us to move forward from it and beyond it and see the truth of who we are instead.
Okay. Now, the next logical question obviously is, okay, how do we start becoming aware of this inner critic? But before we go there, because I know that is going to take us into a little bit deeper of a conversation, but before we go there, I think that a question that goes before that for most of us is, okay, so it can take all these shapes, it can do all these things. What is the first step that I get to take in order to start noticing the inner critic?
Honestly, it's curiosity. Anyone can get curious about what we're feeling. So it's the awareness of these experiences. So I just listed a few different common thoughts that we might have or feelings that we might have. We might get frozen when we're wanting to take action towards our goals. We might compare ourselves. We might beat ourselves up. So when the next time the listener, the next time you notice that happening, now you have, because of this new awareness, you have a new opportunity to get curious. So the second you start noticing that you've been scrolling on social media and feeling quite terribly after comparing yourself, then get curious. Like what is going on and what am I thinking right now? How am I feeling? What am I noticing? What is coming up for me as these things are going?
Now, for me, at least, and I'm just going to be honest and vulnerable here, right? And I know that anybody who's listened to me for a while understands that none of these processes are once and done, right? We continue to work on these things. And I know that for me, I start noticing these things. And then my initial thought is, oh, you're just being silly. Just let it go. Right?
Yeah.
Or no, that's why are you thinking that? Just let it go. It's fine. And my tendency tends to be, okay, I kind of notice it for a second, but if I'm not careful to really sit and get deeper into that curiosity that you're talking about, I will dismiss it right away. So for most people listening, I think that we have moments of short awareness, but then we do something to distract from it or to detract from noticing it, right? So in this process of trying to get curious, is there anything that you suggest or that we can do to stick with that curiosity and go a little bit further past that initial resistance of looking at it?
Sure. Well, I think this is so normal. This is the pattern of the inner critic itself. Because first, just to say this, which will help me answer this question, is that the nature of the inner critic and the response to it often leads us to feeling like we're not enough in some way. And that is incredibly painful. So we, of course, want to avoid that at all costs. We shut down, we distract ourselves. Maybe we go and do something else. We start doing whatever we can so we don't have to go there. So first, I think it's really important to acknowledge that it's so normal to not want to get curious about these things. And it's so understandable, because it's almost like, oh, I don't want to see that scary monster in the corner. So I'm just going to ignore it. So in order to inspire you to get curious, I think we need to see the bigger picture of why you would do so in the first place. That if you were to get curious about noticing this inner critic and questioning it, you could release yourself of a pattern that might be holding you back and might be disconnecting yourself from the things that you want. So whatever that might be, maybe you're working towards building your own business and you find yourself frozen and not sure why you're frozen at certain times, or you find yourself just procrastinating on without wanting to, without knowing why. If you were to get curious and observe this pattern with curiosity, first, that's extending kindness to yourself, which right away can feel better. Just by observing, there's like a softening that can happen. So even though we might be distracting ourselves, we're still not feeling great. It's like this low vibration that stays with us, even though we're distracting ourselves. So I like to think of it like in cartoons, that when you see that big scary shadow on the wall that looks like there's a giant monster around the corner, we don't want to look because we think it's going to be the scary monster. But if you were to step into a little bit of courage, let it be scary, and get curious about what is on the other side, we always tend to find that it's just a little stuffed animal caught in the right light, and it's not scary at all. And there comes an immense sense of relief, because the truth of the matter is, you deep down know that you are not all those stories. Like, the truth of you knows that you are worthy, that you are enough, that you are valuable and powerful. And so that's why it feels so terrible, because it goes against your true nature. So if you were to question those stories, it feels better because you then become aligned with who you really are.
I love that analogy, the little stuffed animal caught in the right light. I really love that analogy.
Right, right.
And that is so often the case, right? There's so many things in life that we resist simply because they're uncomfortable and
Yeah.
simply because they're not what we're accustomed to doing. And we don't understand that just turning to face it can make such a huge difference. It can completely transform the way we're looking at an experience and what we're letting affect us in one way or another, right? So you mentioned that deep down inside, let's talk a little bit about that deep down knowing, because that's, I think, one of the greatest obstacles that all of us as humans face. It's the fact that deep down we know, and we would just accept that we know. Right? So how do we start recognizing or distinguishing between what is, I don't know, what is idealistic in our part, or what might be a pipe dream in our part, and what is our inner knowing speaking to us?
I love this question. Yes. Well, the thing to recognize is, I think even the nature of the inner critic is still from a good place. It's still from a deep desire to keep ourselves safe. So it might be doing it in a mean way, but it's still from a deep down survival. It's from a core being of caring about ourselves so much that we're willing to sabotage this thing right here because we want to keep going. We want to be safe. So I like to remember that even though these patterns, these stories are playing out inside the mind and they're essentially lies, they're still from a good place. So distinguishing between the inner truth, the knowing, and pipe dreams, I guess, is recognizing that you already know the times when you feel the truth. It's like there's this experience of, oh yeah, that's right. When you read a quote that just speaks to you, or you read a passage in a book that just makes you feel so moved. If you see a scene in a movie, or a friend says something, it's like something in you lights up and stirs. And to me, that's the thing to chase. That the stories in the mind might contradict, but we do know that, like, we have so many skills and so much intuition available to us all the time. We just might not be seeing it as that, but to chase that feeling, those inner knowings. And I think as a listener right now, you might be able to think of those moments. You might be thinking of several moments where when a friend says something kind about you that feels good, even that's the time it feels good because it's aligned with the truth of who you are. Does that answer your question?
It does. And I think a big part of it is we are so conditioned to ignore our feelings or to suppress our feelings. And it goes so deep. And I mean, I'm not going to steal away from your thunder, but I think that a lot of it starts with what makes a good kid, right? So even from being little, is if you're a good kid, you don't throw tantrums, so you don't allow yourself to feel upset or sad, because no, that's not what a good kid does. And it's well-intentioned, like you were talking about the inner critic, right? So we have outer critics that feed into the inner critic, and it just builds and builds and builds. So I think that the first challenge, and this is leading to my next question, right? I think that the first challenge is embracing our feelings as opposed to trying to suppress or reject them, right? So
yes.
how do we then, after we start recognizing the inner critic, right, and after we start going through all these questioning and curiosity processes, how do we use our feelings in a more productive way instead of just ignoring and suppressing?
Yes. Well, the beautiful thing is, if you do get curious, that is a process of allowing yourself to feel. When we're not allowing ourselves to feel, we're not curious. We're often judging ourselves for feeling, or repressing, or doing other things. So that simply the way to start developing a sense of well-being in your emotions and intelligence in your emotions is first and foremost allowing yourself to feel. Because when we repress the uncomfortable emotions, we automatically repress the comfortable ones, the ones that we want. So then we're left with a lot of discomfort, even though we're trying to feel comfortable. We're left with a lot of discomfort, a lot of maybe numbness or mundane feelings, and not a lot of the joy that we're looking for. So the first thing that I always take my students through when working with emotions is recognizing that an emotion is simply a vibration we experience in the body. And it carries within it information about what thoughts might be present in our minds, particularly the subconscious mind, the unconscious, what we're not really aware of. So if you see a vibration as simply a vibration moving through your body, and you can allow it to flow by getting curious about where you feel it and just letting it be there, then it has the chance to share with you the information that it might be carrying, and it has the chance to leave you. I love to think of emotions as like all of us. Emotions just want to be seen. They just want to be heard by you. And oftentimes, if we just give ourselves the moment to let it be there, get curious about it, it moves on.
Awesome. That is awesome. So when looking at the inner critic specifically, and as we've talked about curiosity and emotions and all these things, is trying to silence the inner critic the right approach, or how should we, I hate to use the same word again, but how should we approach the inner critic? What is the best way to deal with this inner critic?
Yes, 100%. So it's actually very contrary to what we would naturally think. And we would think that we just want to cut this thing out. And that's how I approached it. I remember thinking that I needed to throw myself away to become something better in order to have what I wanted. And it wasn't until I realized that I needed to befriend who I am already and accept all experiences, as recognizing that I am a human being who has a human brain, which naturally has negative thoughts. It's how the human brain operates, and has emotions of all kinds, the full spectrum of emotions. Then we can move forward. So what I help my clients with is actually learning to befriend the inner critic, of getting curious about it, listening to it, understanding where it comes from. And this is where self-compassion comes in. And I love to teach how to get to self-compassion, which a lot of the steps that we've shared today, curiosity, observing, allowing, these are the steps that can eventually lead you to self-compassion. But with self-compassion, I love to use the analogy of road rage, that if someone cuts you off in traffic, we're pissed. That's this person, they're not an actual human, it's a car. They've interfered with your day, put you at risk, got in the way of your plans. So of course we're mad. But if we then understood what happened, maybe this person was literally in a life or death situation and they had no choice but to go. We then have the choice to experience compassion. We might then say, oh, okay, I feel for this person. They've become human to us. We understand what's going on. And so the same thing is true for ourselves. We cannot feel compassion for something we don't understand. So of course we're going to be mad at the inner critic because it's interfering with our lives. If you start to understand what the inner critic is, maybe you're mad at the pattern of not taking action. Maybe you're mad at the pattern of comparing. Maybe you're mad at the pattern of just feeling terrible. And that's so normal. Of course we would be, because it is interfering with what you want. But if we then get curious and observe and befriend this pattern, seek to understand it, we then might have compassion for it. And it's now we're one whole, soothed, softened being that realizes that we are human and it is okay. And then we can move forward. So self-compassion is the antidote to the inner critic. And what happens when we embrace self-compassion, we practice it, this inner critic is no longer this thing that's against us. Instead, we have our own backs, and it is just information of stories of ways for us to understand our past selves, our younger selves, and be kind to ourselves.
Yeah, that's so good. As you were talking, I got this image, like this clear image of like a parent trying to hug a teenager and the teenager pushing away and pushing away. And then when they finally give in to and lean into the hug, how good it feels. So that's
Mm.
the image I got. I don't know, but
Yes,
it
I
helped
love
me.
that. I love that.
So as we come to the end of our time together, it flies when I have great people like you on. But I would love to, first of all, invite you to let us know how anybody who is resonating with your message, who is listening and thinking, this all sounds so great. I would love to learn more. I would love to find out more about what Rebecca can do to help me work through this inner critic situation. How can they find you? Where can they go? Do you have anything coming up that you might want to invite the listeners into?
Sure, absolutely. Well, the easiest thing, as you clearly enjoy podcasts, I have a podcast called Inner Critic Freedom, and particularly episode 161 speaks to being frozen and a lot of the things that we've shared. So if you are curious to hear more about that, going and listening to episode 161 on Inner Critic Freedom could be valuable for you. But furthermore, I also have a free guided meditation that I will send the link to you that you could download. And this meditation takes you through the process of aligning with your vision, the goals that you are looking to achieve, and helping you soften the inner stories that are blocking us from that, and just feel like this vision is possible and it's safe to receive it.
That's
So
awesome.
I have that. And then, of course, Instagram, Rebecca Doring Meditation. You can find me on Instagram.
Cool. I see you have a kitty around.
I do. He's been going nuts.
My dog was trying to get on the scene, but no, she's over there. But anyway, Rebecca, thank you so much. Seriously, you have added so much value to our community today, and you have given us so much to think about and to work through. Is there anything else that you would like to touch on before we wrap up today?
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, I would just love to leave you, the listener, with this one last thing. That if you've resonated with anything that I've shared, I encourage you to recognize that what if these stories, these patterns that have been holding you back are merely just opportunities to get closer to yourself and discover who you really are underneath our labels, underneath our roles, underneath all the things that we might assume we are.
Mm-hmm.
And follow the light within your heart, follow your desires, and that will lead you forward towards discovering who you really are.
That is really so cool. Anyway, Rebecca, thank you again for being part of Sincerely Speaking. For everybody watching, if this has been valuable to you, share it. Share it with everybody you know in your life that can benefit from it. And we will see you next week on Sincerely Speaking. And thank you again, Rebecca. I will see you soon.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Value and impact in this conversation as we found in creating it for you. If you have, then go ahead and share this with someone else in your life that you know might find it valuable. And in the meantime, don't forget about my offer to head on over to marciamaro.com and schedule your free 30-minute clarity and confidence call. We will talk through all your dreams, all your plans, all your goals, the things that might be getting in the way. And if it makes sense for both of us, I might invite you to join me in one of my programs or one of my coaching packages, but there's no obligation. And I promise you that this will be the best 30 minutes you spent in a long, long time. So again, head on over to marciamaro.com, set up that time to chat, and I will see you on the other side. And in the meantime, share, subscribe, like, and I will see you next week here on Sincerely Speaking. Thank you.